Okay, I'll give you guys a second to join me again if that's what's going to happen. Okay, so you let me know if there's sound restored. Should be. Okay, cool. Now can you tell me what the hell we were talking about? Because I totally I lost track. And there was a guy that had said he just experienced some synchronicity, and I think that you had posted. Here, let me look and see if. Well, actually, I'll just if you had something you wanted me to comment on, go ahead and post it again. And I think what I was talking about is that although I had been warning about the potential to get yourself in trouble, chasing spirit, as I've heard it termed, and becoming delusional, and it's just like gambling. Don't risk more than you can afford on an intuition. It's that simple, really. Um, because there are wish demons. And as I was saying earlier, we don't have adepts training us. This practice, for example, of like New Age housewives to channel all the time without any training in the occult, this is like, I mean, they think they're talking to Michael Jackson and it's actually fucking Beelzebub, like Aleister Crowley warned against this practice. I mean, this guy is reputed to be like the darkest magician. I don't think that's true, but let's just say that it is. Even that guy was warning, like, this is like using your being as a condom that is passed around. That's the analogy he used. So it goes back to what I was saying before about how respect and the knowledge that a true spiritual development is a skill. And oh yeah, please, I haven't asked you guys to hit the like button, share, subscribe, and your support on Patreon means more than ever because we've been demonetized without explanation, without warning. 2 years. I was fighting with YouTube to pay us because they haven't given us a dime, and the response was to demonetize, which means that you guys can't even do the live chat contributions, the tip jar thing. So there's a link in the description, probably not from this one, but you can just go to our Phoenix Flames email and do Zelle or PayPal if you'd like, or become a patron supporter, and then you get some premium content, secret live streams. We've been doing the Kabbalion the last couple of weeks, and I have a tendency to talk about things that I might mute a little bit to the general public in those live streams. So yeah, you guys, please offer your experiences, and if I can offer any insight. Well, so let's get back on track here. It is very important. Speaking of Crowley, his secretary, Israel Reggerty, I read one of his books, and I can't stand him because he's so pretentious and pompous, which is really just a super common attribute of magicians. I don't know why. Satanists are terrible about this too. And one of their commandments, at least in LaVeyan Satanism, is thou shalt not be pompous. And then they're like, well, if you're a Satanist, I guess your job is to break the commandments. So that explains it, I guess. But then why have them in the first place? But he advised that he advised that it's really important to get some psychotherapy before really seriously engaging in not just the practice of consciousness expansion, but if you are specifically intending to use consciousness to influence your experience, you had better make sure that you have conscious command of your wiring, control that you are that the light has been shined in those places where you refuse to look. Otherwise, you risk making a mess that nothing on earth can clean up. All the king's horses and all the king's men will never be able to put it back together again. Trust me. I mean, and it's not true. I have been amazed the number of times, before I was finally really able to correct those neural nets. I think finally for myself, I always took this blame upon my own shoulders and guilt and shame. And I thought the universe, and this comes from the Judeo-Christian influence, the guilt complex, right? That I would be punished, that I would never get the opportunity again. And I was always so absolutely astonished the way that the universe would put the pieces back together, and I would find myself in the most absurdly improbable circumstances, usually improved from the last time I had destroyed it, because this self-sabotaging complex did not necessarily stop me from just like manifesting it all again somehow out of the rubble. And I would do it so quickly, and it was so improbable every time. It took me a while to realize that's not how the universe works. Even though I don't really ascribe at all to the Judeo-Christian concept of this wrathful, vengeful, punishing God, the influence of that doctrinal mindfuckology, it had eaten its way into my being like some sort of parasitic soul worm, and I had to be forgiven over and over again before I realized that is just not how it works. That's not what this is about. This is just about the fact that consciousness is the organizing principle that organizes matter and energy and gives form and manifestation to our experience. I mean, one of the possibilities, earlier I was talking about how it is so difficult to find a deterministic or material explanation for the way that these synchronicities can manifest, especially when they're not just mental, right? Like when I was talking about the ruler with the 211s, I mean, so many circumstances had to coalesce in order for that synchronicity to materialize, right? Or the one in my video that, by the way, I don't even do my own editing. So the people that have accused me of editing that on purpose, they're really accusing my partner of conspiring with me. And I think if I asked her to lie for me, she would just be enraged. Right? She's just so instinctively honest that it's just, I guess you guys don't know her, but it's just dumb, to think that she would agree to do something like that. And it also says I couldn't have done it subconsciously. So, and the other one is the bear clause. But here's the thing: there always is an explanation. One way that I've heard this expressed is that there is a natural cause, there is a supernatural cause, and then underneath of that, in parentheses, it says, "Let these two asses be set to grind corn," meaning that even both of these statements are still not really sufficient. And so the thing about the bear clause is that I was living in a place that was heavily populated by Dene or Navajo people, and the likelihood is that it is some kind of ceremonial blessing to put some bear claws into the structure of the building when it's built, and that's how they got there. I mean, I'm almost 100% certain that that is the actual explanation. But that has got nothing, that does nothing to negate the synchronistic value of what occurred. Because for me to receive that phone call right at that moment about the bears, right as the bear claws fall out of this absurd place, you know what I mean? It's still, the universal mind has to act through conduits, right? It has to have mechanism of action. And I had taken those kind of things as to be like a demonstration of its prescience and omniscience. And I think its omnipotence is only constrained by the necessity of the laws that it generated in order to give rise to creation. Right? And this kind of stuff, by the way, is why I hate it when people say, you know, even the Kabbalion, when I was reading through it to do the secret stream the other day, he kept, or no, it wasn't, I'm sorry, it was your mate Tom. He did an otherwise excellent video on the Kabbalion, and I was watching it. And he kept saying, like, it's beyond our comprehension. And I thought, no, it's not. And you need to stop saying that. People just need to stop fucking saying it. You just need to think more deeply about this stuff, because it can be understood. Otherwise, it would never have happened. If it's comprehensible to the universal mind to the extent that it can create it, it is comprehensible to our minds because we are that universal mind and we have access to the entire mainframe. If we have the discipline and willpower and the determination to develop our software, right? I guess a router might be a more appropriate analogy. So I think we got something about the no, I didn't see the first half because I got distracted by the sound problem. So no, I'm sorry. If you're gonna have to yeah, you're gonna have to redo that, retype it. So I mean, you guys get where I'm going with this, I suppose. Critical thinking is still necessary in the realm of spirituality. This is interesting too, something I almost missed. It's difficult to explain, but Jung actually considered the possibility that meaning could be a cause, because acausality is not something that we really tolerate in a deterministic universe. And there are some indications of it in subatomic physics, but it's not actually, it's like something that has been sort of ruled out progressively more and more over the last couple of decades in subatomic physics. Most of the phenomena that were observed that were thought to be acausal actually turned out to be misperceptions based on technological limitations. So we didn't have the ability to observe the particles that were that small, or we had not detected the influences that were manifesting these phenomena. But there is entanglement, and that is quite possibly the last remnant of an example of acausal phenomena in the universe. And in case you guys aren't aware, entanglement is the fact that any two particles that are separated, no matter what the distance, respond instantaneously, which means that either everything is really actually in one place, which gives this crazy level of validity from a modern deterministic point of view, to the idea that all is one, and that separation is an illusion, or it means that information can travel faster than light, which challenges Einstein's relativity. And so acausality, in terms of the fact that we do not know what it is that could possibly facilitate the response between these separated particles, which, by the way, could also help with the mystery of synchronicity. But I would suggest that one of the universal laws is that there's an exception to every rule. That's why when in physics, when we do an experiment 100 billion times, and that's only possible because these experiments often happen within trillionths of a second, crazy small amounts of time that facilitate the repetition of these experiments very, very rapidly. every billionth time or something, they'll get a different result. And so that anomaly represents a manifestation of this exception to every rule. And that has to be there because in order for the universe to exist such as it is, there are two main antinomies, order and chaos. And so in order for us to have free will, for example, or for us to have movement and space and matter, there has to be this interplay between order and chaos. And so the exception to every rule is an obvious necessity of natural law in order to create the space for us to do anything. And so what I'm getting at is acausal phenomena on the subatomic plane indicates that in this reality, there is the possibility of acausal phenomena, which synchronicity could be an expression of, that the relationship and meaning cannot be explained in any sort of deterministic fashion. And again, I'm on the fence about how to think about this, but Jung did interpret it. Thought is faster than light. Yes, concept is faster than light is another way. Somebody actually said this in the comments one time, and they explained it in this way. If there's a king in another universe, and the prince is on Earth, the king dies, the prince is instantly king. Yeah, I think that was you, Osmantar, right? Okay, so in case this guy went through the trouble to retype this synchronicity, no, I don't see it. No, go ahead, Stephen. If you want to take the time to type it again, I'll be happy to respond. So what we're getting at is Jung's theory that matter is just mind in another form, which is, of course, consistent with Hermetic thought. And I also find it interesting that this is kind of how I've been thinking since I was a child. I've always just kind of thought that the universe was a thought, and that we are just the sensory organs of the consciousness that created the universe, so that it had some mechanism of self-exploration. And this is interesting as well, and I think it bears sharing because it may be of some facility to you guys. I have noticed throughout my life that, and this is sort of like another form of synchronicity, I guess, where things of significance appeared, and I would notice them when I was a child even, but I did not understand the significance because I had no reference for it. A girlfriend when I was very young who absolutely, definitely did not know who Hermes Trismegistus was. No way this is possible. Named a certain body part of mine that we could call a wand, Hermes, and the significance of that later in life, it's like I feel like the universe has been using these like apparently meaningless coincidences to demonstrate, or even if it's not doing consciously, it has allowed me to perceive this conceptual continuity of these synchronicities over the course of my entire life. And it has helped to direct my attention to the puzzle pieces that would allow me to construct this metaphysical model that I have been sharing with you guys through this channel all of this time. And one of the most important ways that is manifested is that I have always known something was significant as soon as I heard it. And sometimes I would fail to investigate the thing in time, but even in those cases, it appears to me that it was better that I didn't, because it had more value when I finally, like say I had certain experiences, and then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about Jung, which is where this is going, because from the first time I heard his name, I was like, I need to read some of that guy's stuff, and not because I had any context for it. I didn't need it. And I remember going to the library even in high school, and I remember noticing his books on that. I think I may have even checked one out, and I got as far as the preface and probably got distracted by some Timothy Leary or Terence McKenna or something a little woolier. I think so. There was some kind of a bit of a turnoff about his writing style. It was really old fashioned and kind of I don't know. I still don't really like it that much, but I had no idea that synchronicity had anything to do with him. Yeah, those are pine trees. We have pine in Ecuador. Let's see see if I can point. Those big ones over there are eucalyptus. They're super tall and skinny. You can't see the whole thing, but it's incredible. They're like toothpicks that they can be that tall and skinny and not just get blown in half. Um, Jared, if I've been experiencing synchronicities with certain people pretty reliably, what does that mean? Is it the other person generating this or the relationship? I would need more detail. That's not really sufficient. I would say it depends on context. It depends on what is the synchronicity. Does it relate to the person, or is it communicating something topical? Um, so I think that's what you have to consider to sort of analyze that. Uh, where was I going? The man, totally lost my train of thought there. So we'll just move on to something else that Jung. That's right, Jung. So I knew that Jung was going to be significant, but it wasn't until much later when I had all the experiences of synchronicity that I Googled synchronicity and discovered that holy shit, it's this Swiss psychologist. I've been reading to read his stuff since I was a teenager, and I've ignored him. And now these experiences are so prevalent in my life and have come to almost define my ontology or at least are a major cornerstone of it. And I always knew that I need to read this guy, but I'm glad I didn't, because if I had known what synchronicity was, I would have suspected that I was just generating these due to the influence of this idea that I had picked up from reading this guy's material. And that's what I meant by how it's oftentimes better that you don't understand the significance of this stuff until there's a bird like right above me. I've actually been hit in the head by them before while I was doing these live streams. The entire time too, there are these little wasps that sometimes they do sting me every once in a while, and it's a bit of a distraction. Looks like we're gonna have to wrap it up soon. There's a storm coming, and it's threatening to disconnect. Yeah, Stephen. Actually, I've had that same experience, but with DMT, um, which is actually chemically just a slight variation, basically, of the DMT. Um, in fact, in my experience, once you've had ayahuasca or DMT, the psilocybin experience is never again what it was before. It's or maybe it's just that you have a reference, or I don't know, but I feel like since I have had ayahuasca and DMT, when I take psilocybin, it's more like a mild form of DMT. But this experience of being scanned, I slipped out of the shower one time and I hit my spine on the tile, and it's been fucked up ever since. And so I took a relatively small hit of DMT one time, which I do not recommend. The only time I've ever had bad DMT experience, I took a small dose, and I think being stuck between is not really what you want. But in this case, it wasn't negative exactly. But what happened is this screen formed behind me, and there were these like lasers scrolling up and down my spine, blue lasers, and like all these like ones and zeros code like running up and down this plasma screen, and they're all and they locked onto the injury, and there was like this circle around it, and this voice said, "Oh, you didn't take a big enough hit. We can't get a good enough connection to heal the injury. And I was like, what the hell? So I wouldn't worry about being scanned by these things. I think it's just consciousness. And when I talk about aligning yourself with the life force, uh, uh, it's you don't even have to think about it in moral terms, like you're doing something good and so your karma is good. In fact, the Buddha and a lot of teachers have tried to explain to people that is not what that means. That's not what karma is. It's much I think more accurate to think of it in terms of order, aligning yourself with that process that gives order, the positive creative life force. It supports itself because that's what facilitates its experience. And so I think that those type of experiences are real, that this kind of like consciousness trying to heal an organism is, it's clearly something that happens. And there's all sorts of miraculous stories of cancer healing and all sorts of highly unlikely relief from physical maladies that people experience through ayahuasca and other psychedelics, even though there is no known biochemical basis for that to occur. Well, I would say that just had a mental day of 11/11 synchronicities this morning. I said to my wife, I want to earn an extra 500 quid this month. Yeah. Keep going. Well, yep. That's how it goes, man. Do you guys know? Have you ever seen the movie Waking Life? When Philip K. Dick, they talk about the story of Philip K. Dick. Uh, he wrote this book, and one day he went to the gas station and he picked up a hitchhiker, which is something he said he would never do. And the guy told him his name, and then there's all these other details. And then for some reason he told his priest, and the priest said, "Well, that's the book of whatever from the Bible. Like those are all the same names of the people. That's basically the exact same plot." And you know, the only reason I mention that is because it says kind of like Valis Arcade Dick, and I have no clue who that actually is. But congratulations on the extra money. I don't understand why that would even happen, but I'm glad it happened to you. By the way, Shaman Shed is a great podcast. We did a talk the other day that is very interesting, and I'm going to post that either tonight or tomorrow. So another element of this that I think is important that we should get to is that if it is true, as I believe that it is, that we are experiencing an evolution of consciousness, an awakening worldwide, we're going to start experiencing collective synchronicities. And I've already observed this happening with groups of people where it's like the mystery only seemed to like to reveal itself to individuals, and it has been said for many, many centuries that the mystery always presents itself in a way that casts doubt upon itself, because we are only conduits, avatars, hollow tubes to bring down fire from heaven. And so what we do in our practices is a reflection of the universal mind. And so one of the consistencies throughout practices of magic, people are very skeptical, or what is the word, suspicious of Freemasons and other secretive societies, sometimes with good reason, others not. But it is also true of shamans and Native American medicine men that, for example, Larape that was mentioned earlier, is the recipes from individual shaman in Brazil are not going to be shared with anyone. Maybe like, one person before they die, it's like super, super secretive. And the Shuar who I work with here in Ecuador, if you're learning from a shaman, he will tell you, do not watch the hands of your master. The tradition, even though there's a lot of respect for what is referred to as the Shuar way, and there are certain elements that are passed down from generation to generation, from shaman to shaman, for the most part, you are encouraged to develop your own techniques, to just kind of have an overview of what it is that needs to be accomplished, and to not share this because you're giving away your power. Again, Aleister Crowley, when people said like, well, why would anyone learn from this guy? He was dark and maybe even sinister and all of this stuff. And he said, do not do what I do. I don't want to father a flock. I want each man to carve his own way through the jungle, to write their own rituals, just based on what you're trying to accomplish. Don't imitate me. Right? So what I'm getting at there is this idea that the mystery presents itself in a way that casts doubt upon itself. It was a way for it to obscure itself from the profane, to it's like the veil, and that was very difficult for me, because you really want to you see the efficacy of this stuff in the expansion of consciousness, and the good that people experiencing actual gnosis or exposure to the universal mind does, how it changes people so that they are they live in the interest of creation and the collective, and less selfishly and less destructively. So you want to share these experiences of the mystery, but you can make a damn fool of yourself because of the way that these things present themselves. For example, DMT. When someone smokes the world's most powerful hallucinogen and they come back and they say, I was talking to non-human intelligences. No, you don't understand. They were real. And people are like, you were fucking high. Like, I saw you. You're fucking high, And so they write it off. And, of course, now we have researchers, some of whom have never even smoked it, that are totally convinced that this compound actually does put people into contact with hyperdimensional or non-human intelligences. So, point being, I think that this is opening up in gradual stages. And so to have observed these very personal experiences like synchronicities start to manifest in front of groups of people, I think that we are going to start to notice collective synchronicities that will be observable on a global scale. And I'll even give you an example. V is for Vendetta. The plot of that movie represents either indisputable prescience on the part of the writers, insider knowledge and proof of international conspiracy, or massive synchronicity. And for those of you that don't know, it was written in, I think, 2006, or it came out in 2006, so it's probably written a little earlier than that. It is about the world in 2020. A disease is depopulating, particularly affecting Americans, right? More Americans are dying than anywhere else in the world in the movie, but it's not even set there, which is like, why is this detail even relevant? It's not, except for the synchronistic or prescient element. A fascist prime minister is promising security but not freedom in England. Did I say that it takes place in 2020? And they have just banned protesting in the UK. You cannot gather with more than 2 people, right? So, am I missing anything? I have to be. Oh yeah, the masks. People are being forced to wear masks, I believe, aside from the main character. So that is, in my opinion, most likely not a result of insider knowledge on the part of the Wachowski sisters now. And I think that there's probably more. You know, if you guys can think of any, drop them in the comments. But I think I've been talking for Kurt is just determined to fly right into my head. Man. I'm sure that I missed. Well, we could talk about God winks. I mean, I just want to recommend this book, Pronoia. It's the opposite of paranoia. I can't remember the author's name. And he talks about how these synchronicities are God winks, which is cute. But that's all I have for this live stream. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. I apologize about the craziness with the multiple links and stuff, but sometimes this microphone just shuts down on me. Do me a favor and hit the like button, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't forget anything. Keep your eyes out for, I'm going to do an ayahuasca. Well, I've done it. I just need to post it. Ayahuasca preparation video. I'm going to remake the Huachuma San Pedro video. I just have a few little portions still to splice in there, and the interview with Mike from the Shaman Shed coming up, and then the reincarnation reveal is going to be a good one. That's my next proper video, I guess, that is not instructional. It's going to be coming in the next week or so. It's taking forever, and I apologize for that. But thank you guys so much. I hope that was of value, and we'll see you again soon.